What if it's actually a medical diagnosis? And here's the kicker, the real science behind it. It's way more terrifying than any ghost story. Let's get into it. All right, so to kick things off, we're starting with a story. A mystery, really, that just seems to break all the rules of reality.
Picture this, it's 2019. A woman, completely calm, walks into a police station, and she confesses to a brutal murder. Just out of the blue. And this isn't some vague confession, no way. She knew everything. The kind of details only the killer could know. The weapon, the exact location, the victim's name. I mean, for the police, this is a slam dunk, right? An open and shut case? Well, that's what they thought. Because then they check her alibi, just as a formality. And what they find, it's impossible. They pull up security footage, and there she is, clear as day. At the exact time of the murder, she's 200 miles away. So how? How does that work? How can she know every single detail of a crime she couldn't have possibly committed? It's not a ghost story, it's not sci-fi. The answer, it turns out, is locked inside her own mind. And to unlock that, we've got to dive into one of the most fascinating and, frankly, misunderstood conditions in the entire field of psychology. We're talking about dissociative identity disorder, or DID. You might have heard it called multiple personality disorder before. So let's take a hypothetical case. We'll call her Sarah, right? To most people, Sarah is just a 32-year-old teacher. But inside, it's different. Sometimes Sarah isn't Sarah at all. She's Emma, a scared little 7-year-old girl. And other times, she's Marcus, a 40-year-old man who doesn't even know who Sarah is. And here's the truly mind-blowing part. These alters, as they're called, aren't just different moods or someone playing a character. No, the changes are real. They are physical. They are scientifically measurable. When a switch happens, brain scans literally show different parts of the brain lighting up. Handwriting changes completely. Accents can appear out of nowhere. A person can even go from being right-handed to left-handed. But wait, it gets even crazier. Get this. One alter can be deathly allergic to something like peanuts, while another alter in the same body can eat them without any problem at all. Just let that sink in for a second. It's the same body, the same DNA, but a totally different immune response based purely on who is driving. This isn't just in the mind, it's a physical, biological fact. So you have to be asking, how on earth does this even happen? How does one mind shatter into so many different pieces? Well, it's a defense mechanism, a really extreme one. It almost always starts with severe, repeated trauma during childhood, usually when the core personality is still forming, say between ages 3 and 9. When a child experiences something so awful, so unbearable that they can't process it, the brain does something incredible to survive. It builds walls, it compartmentalizes. It basically locks the trauma away in a separate part of the mind, so another part can keep going to school, can keep functioning. But over time, those locked away parts, they don't just sit there. They develop into their own people, with their own memories and personalities. This is a great way to think about it. Imagine your mind as a house. In a healthy mind, all the doors are open. You can walk from the bedroom to the kitchen freely. But in a mind with DID, that trauma comes in, and it doesn't just close the doors. It builds brick walls between the rooms and throws away the key. Now, the person living in the bedroom has no idea what's going on in the living room. Each room becomes its own isolated world. And we're not just talking about 1 or 2 alters. It can be anywhere from 2 to, well, over 100. And I have to stress this again, this isn't make-believe. fMRI scans, the ones that watch the brain work in real time, they show that when an alter switches, the brain's activity completely rewires itself. Areas like the hippocampus, the amygdala, they change. It's literally like the brain is running different software on the same computer. Okay, so now that we have a grasp on what DID is scientifically, let's connect it back. Let's look at how this creates a truly shocking parallel to something much, much older than psychology. Just look at this. On one side, you have the clinical symptoms of DID. On the other, the historical signs of demonic possession from accounts going back centuries. Let's run down the list. Sudden voice changes? Yep, that's in both. Lost time, blackouts where you don't remember what you did? Check. Knowing things you couldn't possibly know? That's there too. A complete personality change, like a kind person suddenly becoming violent? Both. Even physical stuff, like incredible strength or not feeling pain. It's all there. The overlap, it's staggering. It's almost a 1-to-1 match.
So it really makes you wonder, right? Imagine you're living 500 years ago. There's no neuroscience, no psychology. You see your neighbors suddenly start speaking in a different voice, with a different personality, claiming to be someone else entirely, and then have zero memory of it afterwards. What would you call that? You wouldn't call it a dissociative disorder. You'd call it demonic possession. Okay, so it all seems to fit perfectly, right? Case closed. Possession was just undiagnosed DID. But here's where it gets really weird, because this neat and tidy scientific explanation starts to fall apart when you look at certain cases. We're talking about well-documented cases that even modern science has a really hard time explaining. First, there's the language problem. You have patients who suddenly start speaking fluent languages they have never, ever learned or even been exposed to. How do you explain that? Then there's this idea of a shared consciousness. Alters in two completely different patients, people who have never met, claiming they know each other. Or what about future knowledge? Alters that predict future events with shocking accuracy. And maybe the most puzzling thing of all, the religious response. We've documented cases where years and years of therapy did nothing, but then after an exorcism, the symptoms, the alters, they just disappear for good. These cases, these anomalies, they push us beyond simple psychology. They force us to ask a much bigger and, honestly, a much more uncomfortable question about what consciousness even is. And that really brings us to the heart of the mystery. We know trauma can shatter a mind into pieces. But what if that shattering doesn't just build walls inside? What if, in the process, it actually cracks open a door to something outside? Is it possible that this kind of trauma doesn't just split the mind, but opens it up? And that leads to one final, really chilling piece of this puzzle. You see, in nearly every severe case of DID that's been studied, therapists report encountering a very specific kind of alter. It's an alter that calls itself the gatekeeper. And its job, it says, is to control all the others, to decide who gets to come out and who has to stay locked away. But here's the thing. When psychologists ask these gatekeepers where they came from, they don't give the same story as the others. They don't say they were created by trauma. Their answer is always the same, and it is chilling. They say they've always been there, just waiting. And that leaves us with the final question, doesn't it? What in the world are they waiting for?